And we have WORMSIGN. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mars on Life. I'm Ryan Mancini, and joined with me, as always, as he takes
the other guy, Sebastian.
Hey, we're both the other guys. There's no hierarchy here. We're both other guys.
So, okay. It's been about, I want to say, a couple months since the world decided to let the government rule their lives, essentially when this whole thing started. And I'm not one to put my tinfoil hat on or speak with such an Alex Jones-Ian decor, but I'm going to break it down into three kind of groups of people that just kind of speak to me as being goddamn idiots about this whole bleach situation.
Oh.
So there's the people who believe that this can actually work. There's the people who are engaging in said activity. And then there's the people who believe that spinning it to progress their certain political agenda is going to make them sound more intelligent. As if the world needs more Amanda Todds, okay, with the whole drinking of the bleach and the injecting of certain chemicals. And this is why I thoroughly believe natural selection is in its prime. But it's very just, I don't know. A lot of people would say, oh, well, being so apolitical, it's so ignorant. I find it very humorous because there really is nothing you could ever get offended by. And the whole bleach joke, as old as it is, what are we, like 2011, 2012 when this took off?
Wasn't that around the time of the whole bath salts thing?
It's coming back, and I couldn't be dying harder from laughter, okay? And it doesn't matter whether you swing left, right, center, or sideways. It's funny, you know? It's funny that people are actually believing it, and it's funny that some people are actually doing it. Although, much like the whole Cut for Bieber incident way back.
Oh my goodness, I remember that. Oof.
As much as people want to believe that it's real, I don't. It is still funny because I happen to find dark humor funny because white guy over here. I'm willing to bet, I'm willing to put all my chips in the kettle here when I say this. I do feel like a lot of these are the same sort of like 4chan type pranks, which, to be fair, are in bad taste. But if you like that sort of stuff, then you shouldn't see a problem with it. The people injecting themselves with sterilized needles hooked up to like a bottle of Fabuloso. I don't know. I find that hilarious.
Well, that's just it. It's gone from 4chan to, and I speak as somebody who I have not perused 4chan. I have seen what others have seen.
It is hysterical.
And I refuse to
go
down. The way I see it, 4chan is like, remember in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes into the tunnel and he has the vision with Vader? That's 4chan to me. It's just going to show me the ugly side of humanity.
Oh, no, but see, that's the point, that to have it so collated, if that's the word,
like congealed into one space.
But you know what? You go into there knowing you're going to be in there for a shit show. And this episode isn't dedicated to 4chan, nor are we endorsed. But it's a matter of like, you're going in there knowing that, first of all, you don't go in there knowing you're about to be offended. Okay, that's why you turn off your brain when you go in there.
The whole idea, I mean, and mind you, it's not so much the president got the idea of injecting ourselves with bleach or putting ultraviolet light in our skin, which saying both of those sentences, I feel like I can feel my IQ dropping just saying those sentences.
But see, that's the thing. You don't look at that statement as an air of professionalism because it's not supposed to be looked at with professionalism. Oh, well, he's the president. Yeah, great.
Well, that's just it. You can't. The presidency.
Would you really do that? Would you really act on that initiative?
But that's just it. Is that this was a guy who said, and he's proved it time and again, and this is why I think he's going to get a second term, is that he can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. And as we speak, he's overseeing 9/11 times 17 in terms of the number of people dying from coronavirus, and he's yucking it up and joking with reporters saying, "Ooh, having a fun time" in the White House press room, and yet he's also looking directly at healthcare professionals, saying basically we're going to look into, and that's just it. Whenever I've followed this guy so closely, I feel like I'm going crazy. It's kind of like Gollum when he has the ring, and the progression going from Smeagol to Gollum. That's me.
Yeah, man.
Watching
What the hell's wrong with you? All right,
Well,
take a step back. Go outside.
I know. I just need to. I got to get out of the cave every once in a while.
Damn it.
But
that ring isn't going to be around forever.
But but the sushi. But it's just like whenever it's one of those characteristics of his presidency where, and I've been obsessed with the American presidency since I was a kid. I'm one of those people where I don't think we need a great person or a great, figure to become president. We just need somebody effective. And that's why I've stopped paying attention to the election coverage, because none of it matters anymore. And realistically, the presidency doesn't matter anymore, because there's never really been any dignity or anything to the office worth touting about. And I think this last week has proven it when he's looking at people within his own coronavirus task force saying we're going to look into putting UV light under the skin and somehow using disinfectant injections. And it's kind of like, that's just it.
Turn those frogs gay.
He looks. Oh, he is turned. Oh, he's been Alex Jones since before he was inaugurated. But it's just that he. That's just it. He says these things.
Is it wrong for me to just bellyache laugh over this shit? Is it so wrong of me to just dry heave with the amount of stupidity?
Well, you and I can do that. It's Joe Schmo who, it's your average person who, they're so out of the loop.
It's your average person, or no, actually on the other side of that, it's your average person who eats, breathes, and shits politics to such a fault. And again, doesn't matter which way you swing. It's a matter of, the president's expectations aren't aligned with mine. Fuck this, or, oh no, we should support this. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're still going to go to bed mad.
Yeah.
You're still going to go to bed unfulfilled about Big Brother in the sky, not so much watching you, but, he didn't look out for me. And it's
and realistically, he isn't. This is a White House with no plan to, for the lack of a better term, combat coronavirus. Who
the fuck am I to politically commentate as a 20-something-year-old? Because everyone with their JDs out of a cereal box is saying the exact same thing on Twitter, saying, we really should be looking at this from an economic or a racial or an artistic or some other facet. And it's like, you don't specialize in any of those subjects. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Besides law.
Let's face it. When we ask the same people who advocated for the Iraq War about how badly they think the president is handling this crisis, you're already pouring dirt in the grave.
Oh yeah,
that's just it. You're already asking the wrong people. This is what I've told people consistently for the last month and a half or so that we've been in our quarantine, is that at this point, it's unprecedented to have a plague during an election year. There were midterms, I think, going on during the Spanish flu, but in terms of a presidential election where someone could either get reelected or booted out of office and replaced, that's never happened. And I think we are in kind of a danger zone where, legally an election has to take place.
Oh, yeah.
But the law doesn't really make much of a difference when you have people that are complaining about their civil liberties in terms of, I want to get a haircut, or I want to stuff my face with a greasy burger. And it's like, well, here's the thing. the civil liberty, I mean, mind you, those are just daily things. It's not like those are civil liberties. The civil liberties are things that during the American Revolution, they were fought for and earned through a war that, mind you, I'm pretty sure coronavirus actually has killed more people than the American Revolution.
I mean, as much as I would, kind of be the one to defend that and say, hang on,
I haven't finished my point. My point being that the civil liberty that people really need to be antsy about, arguably, and I have a little asterisk for why I say arguably, but the civil liberty they need to be most concerned about is the election, because as much as there is law saying we must have an election, otherwise, I mean, because ultimately, if things don't turn out the way they do in terms of people go out and vote in November, it's something that Congress has to handle. And, Trump is vehemently against mail-in voting. And of course, Biden's team, I don't think it's Biden, but Biden's team, mark my words, Trump could argue, oh, we don't really need an election now, or, oh, you should just keep me as president. The reason why I say arguably this is the civil liberty people need to worry the most about is that this has already happened in terms of elections that have been robbed or rigged, or basically something you would see in South America. It's happened before. It happened in 1876. It happened in 2000. I mean, maybe it happened in 2016 if you believe the Mueller report. And guess what? Rutherford B. Hayes in 1876, still president. In 2000, George Bush, he got 2 terms. So, this is kind of what the people that are bitching and moaning in Huntington Beach and in Georgia and in Vegas about, I want to get a haircut, and those people need to realize these are the most mundane things.
When you're quarantined, though, it becomes such a, when you suffer from so much sensory deprivation of being inside all day,
yeah,
any minuscule little thing, like, I'm excited to go to work in the morning to be an essential worker. And, it's not just the matter of like, oh, well, the paycheck's nice, no doubt. But I think...
Are you getting hazard pay?
No, I'm not.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. But anyway, the whole like active investing and like a 401k, that's also implemented. So I'm already shafted in order to put that aside, which, by the way... Again, not speaking from an economic point of view, because fucking numbers, am I right? It's gone back up, thankfully, and I only lost I want to say $1,500, which kind of sucks.
That does suck, yeah.
But
well, speaking of which, did you get your check from Comrade Trump?
No,
your socialist check?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is, as much as each and every day, I'm not like, is it here? No, I'm not going to off myself if I don't happen to get it, which is just kind of the reality we live in of, if I can get out of bed in the morning and put in the hours, then I'm not so much worried about it. And I'm not going to be one to stand on a soapbox and speak for those who are unemployed, who are receiving the check, and how it's voraciously affecting them in a beneficial way, because I'm not unemployed.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I'm at, where I got my check from
I don't want
leader number 1 to borrow from 1984 and Darkness at Noon. It probably depends on who you ask, like especially with our extended friend group. I think it depends on who you ask, because I know of at least a few people that are still working. I know one friend of ours, Brandon, I mean, he works at a bank. That's just it, is that unless people broadcast that they've lost their job, then, I mean, because that's just it. Like I did. Like I basically was like, well, this sucks. But I because people that I worked with at my last job, they did. Like they basically said, well, the company temporarily laid everybody off. And these were people I was expecting to see mid-March. And, of course, now One of them, hopefully we can have her on as a guest on our show, and vice versa.
Well,
She's got her own show.
Can I just ask real quick what the benefit is of, like you said, broadcasting it?
Right. No, I agree.
Like
I agree with that.
broadcasting the shitty situation that everybody as a collective is in, and it's like,
I mean, if any, well,
I hate to sound insensitive, but what makes X person more special?
Well, no,
And
I
don't mean to say it,
yeah.
not humanistically, but it's just a matter of like, well, dude, I've been hearing this shit all over social media. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit here with a chip on my shoulder and say, oh, well, I'm an essential worker. I'm going to be fine, pinky to the mouth, Dr. Evil style. No.
Well,
what I am going to say is that I think people like you who are taking more of a humbled approach, and as you said to me previously, back when we were allowed on the street, the motif of never stop hustling, I find that incrementally 1,000 times better than a laid off journo number 6,800.
If anything, when people we know announce, for example, if they announce that they've lost their job because of this, if anything, it's giving you perspective as to the fact that it's not like as though coronavirus is something that only affects a few people. It's affecting everyone, and
right.
I think there are still people, especially in the United States, that still don't understand that. Like in my situation, I've lost my job. I didn't broadcast it because I didn't find it necessary. It seemed pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
Not to mention, I would rather just directly tell people, hey, I've lost work. I don't think I can invest in a trip anytime soon. But on top of that, it's no different from when you find out somebody has coronavirus, because the same person that I was just mentioning, who she's got her own YouTube show and podcast, I believe she's got her own podcast. She had coronavirus. And right now she's the only person I've known to have it. And as far as I know, she's healthy now.
Well, how was she taking it is my question. Was she taking it in stride, having a positive outlook on it?
Well, that's just it, is that
I think attitude is really just kind of the main deciding factor. Like if you're given that news or that sort of debriefing of, hey, you're now stuck in a shitty situation, and it sounds like the most bullshit mogul entrepreneurial approach as a response to this when I say this, but it's really how you handle the situation that determines your success in life. It's like, shut the fuck up. I could read that out of a toddler book. But
well, I think in her case, that's just it, is that she took it like getting sick with anything else, I think.
Okay.
But at the same time, it wasn't like she was
downtrodden about it,
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't doing that. She wasn't broadcasting, hey, everybody, I have coronavirus. It was more like it was incremental in the sense that, she had a few good things going on the week that this all started. And then she was kind of quiet on Instagram for a few weeks. And then she came back and said, hey, so I think I had coronavirus, and I had X, Y, and Z symptoms, and I'm feeling better now, and yada, yada, yada. And since then, it's been another several weeks since she made that initial post, because she did ultimately post saying, hey, just so you know, I had coronavirus, and I see some of my followers or friends having fun, joking around, going out, and doing things that could jeopardize your health. Take it from me and don't do it. Like, I have lamented over California's unemployment department and how they've been handling. They just in the last 24 hours, they were finally doing maintenance on a website that I'm pretty sure was 2 years old and not up to date, other than an additional tab that gave you the option to basically tell the state of California, I lost my job because of coronavirus. I was able to recertify for benefits. I've still got some issues that I got to figure out that are really bizarre. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. Is we're coming close to what's going to be finally the announcement of, how much the country is making, how many jobs have been lost, and how many people are unemployed. And every prediction that you hear basically says that we're either at or above Great Depression levels of unemployment. That being said, people who file for unemployment aren't necessarily unemployed.
Right.
They could just be finding an extra source of income. But I mean, that's just it too, is that it's where you need to find work while you're filing for unemployment that's tricky, because when I file my employment stuff, I make it clear, look, I'm healthy, I'm fine, and I'm doing this all digitally. I'm not speaking to anybody over the phone, but I do it all digitally, and I make it abundantly clear I am totally healthy. I am 100% healthy, but here's my reason for not taking any work, which is I am in quarantine because of the global pandemic, which the fact that I have to type that out in a box is jarring and it's weird, but that's life. I mean, that's just it. And maybe it's the existentialist in me that's like, you know what? It's life. Get over it. Move on. And that's the part of me that when it rolling it back to Trump and the disinfectant, which of course Lysol had to come out and say, please don't put any of our products within your body.
It's like the Tide Pod advertisement when Tide was like, please don't eat the Tide Pods. It's like, even back then, I knew people were doing it, but did I contribute? Of course fucking not. But did I laugh at people who did? You better believe it. And it's the humorous doomerism within me that I fully endorse it when it does shoot into me. You know what I mean? It's like it's such a dumb humanistic trait that some people have, and whether or not they're doing it for attention or genuine curiosity doesn't matter. Okay.
Right. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's humanistic. It's more it's human nature.
It's human nature to just look at a car on the side of the road up in smoke and just fucking rubberneck. You're not supposed to do it. It really fucks up the rest of the traffic. But
and that's just it too. Is because and you made the comment at the start of the show, and I've known a lot of people from all across my life. And it was really scary. I had a Facebook post where I had people from all different increments of my life commenting on whatever shit Trump says. There's a sitcom. And, they would keep saying the same thing about, natural selection or laughs in Darwin, stuff like that.
Laughs in Darwin.
And the thing is
counter signal me.
That's just it. This is the irony about myself, is that as much as I'm very much a humanist, there is a part of me that I will argue to people, and mind you, out of all the arguments that I have with people, this is the one where I just stop caring, because it's not even an argument worth having. But it's an argument that God delights in human evil, and as a humanist, as a secularist, that's what I'm going to say to people, is that you may think, oh, the people are going to listen to Trump because they like him and they're going to inject bleach, or, Bolsonaro from Brazil or Boris Johnson have it, they're going to go because they're bad guys. But that's just it. That has not happened. And that's not to say that the people protesting aren't going to get coronavirus. It also means they're not necessarily going to die from it either. So even when people argue it's natural selection, it doesn't make much of a difference, because all the bad people are still alive. I mean, Trump was around like 5 people with coronavirus, and he still doesn't have it, as far as we know.
How prescient. This entire Zoomer generation is complaining in droves about how much they hate boomer policies. yet are surprisingly silent.
What you got to do if you're gonna try and get your head out of reality, look for the spice. Look for the look for WORMSIGN. Look for the spice melange. And once you have WORMSIGN, he who controls the spice controls the universe. And this leads into our
Oh, what a fucking segue.
our very beloved topic that I sound like I've discovered this, but this is something that's been around since 1965.
Yeah, dude, it's like you've emerged with the idol out of the tomb in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's like
only to have it be handed over to someone else.
Oh my goodness! I'm one of those people where I don't know. I only know one other person who's aware of the Dune saga or Dune franchise.
Well,
whatever you may call it.
Please go into it, and let's finally.
Or at least I only know one other person personally.
Let's finally unload this pressure chamber that you've been sitting on for the past 4 days. You've been talking about this nonstop, and like passion to a fault almost. I'm sitting in bed sleeping. It's like I want to say after 9, like I took a nap or whatever, and I wake up to at least like 7 messages from you. When I woke up, because that's how I missed your message at 4 p.m. the other day, and I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. Why am I seeing these messages now? And like all these messages, Dune, Star Wars, some meme, I don't know, fucking.
Yeah. Well, one of those was a video about claiming that George Lucas stole from Dune, which, speaking as a fan of both, I mean, and mind you, I'm a newcomer to the Dune saga, so. And I don't know how much of the supplemental material I'm going to ever get into, just because this is a science fiction franchise that truly is unlike anything you've ever seen in, like, Star Wars and Star Trek are so simple and so formulaic, whereas this takes religion, politics, ecology, technology, artificial intelligence. This takes all of those things into so many bizarre directions that, frankly, no pun intended, because the author's name is Frank Herbert, that I kind of wish Star Wars took. Now to kind of get to the meat of what the first book, the book that started this all, Dune, what it's all about. It's set in the far future. It's like 20,000 years in the future, or as I say, a long time from now in a galaxy far, far away. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's like Game of Thrones, where it's Game of Thrones meets Star Wars, because you have this empire, or as it's called in the Imperium, that rules several planets across the galaxy, across different galaxies. And you have all of these different family houses that are all vying and fighting each other for power. Kind of like the Starks and the Lannisters and the Greyjoys from Game of Thrones. You have the Atreides family, the Harkonnens. You have a whole slew of families. And I've done a little bit of research into some of the other supplemental material. The first book largely takes place on this planet that is, you know how Tatooine was such a useless planet other than having Luke and Anakin be from Tatooine?
Right.
The planet Arrakis, which is also called Dune, produces this spice that is the ultimate source of revenue, energy, whatever. And there's a lot, and Frank Herbert made a lot of analogies with politics, religion, ecology, environmentalism in the Dune books that he wrote. Mm-hmm. But it's basically about these families, and finally the Atreides family are allowed their fiefdom over the planet Arrakis. and there's some fighting going on. There's some skirmishes with another family, and it results in the son, the heir apparent to this house, and his name is Paul Atreides, who's basically the Luke Skywalker of the Dune saga of sorts. Okay. He's kind of the Luke Skywalker. It's kind of a reverse because, and I don't know if I'm going to read the books about his son, because arguably it's like, imagine if Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader were Luke Skywalker's son. That's kind of sort of how it is with Paul and his lineage. But he ends up joining a bunch of indigenous people on the planet, and it turns into, Avatar or Dances with Wolves, where he kind of has to rally these people against tyranny. And that's just it with this universe, is that there is technology, but apparently there's no technology that's computer based. And that's because, and this is the thing that I've like lost my mind over, and this is what I keep telling you about how Dune has its own Clone Wars. They had this thing called the Butlerian Jihad, which basically was like a decades-long war that got rid of all computers and robots. There's no aliens in Dune. It's just, if you see anything that looks alien, you just have to take it as it's a highly evolved human. And because the human body can react to the spice in an interesting way, where it changes your biology, it can prolong your life, and it's very like that's why there's a line in the David Lynch movie of "He who controls the spice controls the universe." I still haven't watched the David Lynch movie. I don't know if I will, just because the Warner Brothers film adaptation is coming out at the end of the year. Fingers crossed. The levels of in-universe storytelling that this book gives is like what you would get in Star Wars. And I know prior to recording, I told you that a line that Obi-Wan gives to Luke of a Jedi can always feel the Force flowing through him. There's lines like that all of the time in Dune, and that's because Frank Herbert was building his universe as he kept going. Mind you, there's parts of the book that are extremely interesting to get through. I won't say difficult, but it starts to get into like Shakespeare territory where you're thinking to yourself, how do these adjectives fit with each other in a sentence? And then ultimately it results in Paul not only realizing that he has a destiny based off of the fact that his mom is a part of this almost Jedi-like sisterhood called the Bene Gesserit. And apparently they even have their own kind of version of the Sith. I mean, that's just it. I remember when we did the Star Wars episode telling you, I want to get into Dune. It seems different, it seems interesting, and there's so much in it that's familiar because of Star Wars that I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
See, that's the thing. I can't. First of all, I can't keep up with the newest, the quote unquote newest, like something like Star Wars media.
And mind you, this was
before
Star Wars.
Yeah, no, right. But I know, because of the whole pop culture phenomena that is Star Wars, the comparison of it is not so much going to detract from my overall viewing of Dune or like perspective on it, because I think unlike most of the world with their opinions online, I know how to detract one point from another, and it doesn't have to. They don't all. Here's a tip: certain subjects and certain themes don't always have to run parallel. I know it's shocking. It really is. The revelation is shocking. But I personally believe that the public opinion of it, in comparing these two mediums together, I could already see Red Letter Media having a fucking 5-hour ordeal over this shit. Okay? Because
that's just it. Red Letter Media likes David Lynch.
When they did their whole Star Wars retrospective, which I think to this day it's kind of grittingly unfunny, the video. As informative as it.
I still love their critiques of the prequels. I mean, that was
Yeah.
ultimately what helped me kind of change my
In a,
mind.
in a way, it was just kind of, it's for a YouTube audience. I know who this is for. But anyway.
I think it's those were useful because I think, I was still before I was introduced to them, I was still defending the prequels, and then I watched them, and then I rewatched the prequels, and then I did a lot of thinking.
You were defending the prequels as if you maintained your "I don't like this" opinion, or
oh no, it was defending them as in these are worthwhile Star Wars movies, and they're watchable and they're good.
I don't
the
even
fact
think
of the matter is that there's maybe about a quarter of that stuff that is watchable.
I don't even think when we met you had that same opinion. I think when we met you hated the prequels.
Oh no, well that's just it. When we met, I had already seen Red Letter Media's reviews for the prequels. So by the time you and I had met, I think I was already maybe a year or two out from thinking the prequels. Yeah. That being said, I can't wait to read the Dune prequels on this war that apparently got rid of all computers and robots, just because this is like the idea of creating a religious war against machines. I mean, Terminator and The Matrix didn't even have anything on that. And the fact that this whole conflict is known as, it's named after a character named Serena Butler, hence Butlerian Jihad. This feeling that I have about it must be the same feeling that people had back in 1977 when they saw Star Wars and they heard Luke Skywalker say, "You fought in the Clone Wars," and they're like, "Whoa, what is that?" The cool thing is with the Butlerian Jihad is that there was an actual point behind winning over machines, which was totally get rid of them because they're going to get rid of us. And I think that's something in which the whole Clone Wars, as much as, I watched the Clone Wars show, it's a pretty damn good show. Would I go back and watch it? And maybe. Definitely not the episode where Jar Jar is mistaken for a Jedi. But
it's the best Jedi this side of the galaxy. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh dear. But at the same time, it was just two sides fighting each other, and one happened to be just slightly more dictatorial, I guess. Whereas the Republic didn't really have much of a point in getting rid of the droid armies in Star Wars, other than you knew that Palpatine had to set up the Empire. And that's literally that's the only point. Whereas with this, from what I understand, getting rid of all this technology, it lays the groundwork for why Dune feels like, because in a lot of ways the technology feels very simple. There's so much of it that's just so wild and weird that I know we can't fit into this episode, but I think if we're trying to do anything with the show, with the arts and trying to recommend or promote things, this is something that after reading the book, after feeling curious enough, and mind you, apparently hardcore Dune fans are very iffy about the expanded material that Frank Herbert didn't write. Filling out what the Butlerian Jihad is, that was done by his son and another science fiction author. So, there's people that are like, oh, it's not pure, which, mind you, we kind of talked about that when talking about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and that's fan fiction, whereas the prequels, that's what George Lucas wanted. That being said, Frank Herbert wrote Dune as kind of a warning, because you read the book, and without totally giving away the ending, the character Paul Atreides realizes that he's going to have to probably declare holy war just to win, and he doesn't want to. And or as you, when I previously talked with you about it, as you so eloquently referred to it, the Skywalker Jihad. And
I don't regret it. I really don't.
It's
my magnum opus. of 2020,
Oh,
and it's only April. It's only
that's
April.
gonna be on your tombstone.
It's a fucking epitaph for the days, you know.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think I think you would like it. So, but anyway, moving on from the wondrous imagination of Frank Herbert. We've been looking through our yearbooks from back in the day.
So, all right. So, to preface, we actually wanted to do something special and a little bit more absurdist last week, which now explains the delay. So yeah, we've been looking through our yearbooks, and we decided to kind of make that the whole theme. Well, we were anyway, and oh boy, we got some zingers. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to quite fit the theme to a T. Let's just say that there was a bit of ethanol involved. You connect the dots, and you can go from there. But we got some zingers, and I think I recall myself reading more than you. But if you say that you have some good ones, feel free. We're just kind of going to rattle off a few of some of the more prominent ones. I hope there's nothing indicting in this, but it's high school, so that means everything is an indictment. I think there's.
And I only have a couple plus something that I ended up telling the lovely people that created my sophomore yearbook.
Oh, jeez. Oh, you mean besides the whole lackluster print quality and shitty Photoshop shots we were joking about?
I'm looking at my yearbooks from sophomore and senior year, and the spine is upside down for the senior year cover because they gave them covers, and because I can read the name of my high school on the sophomore year one, I can read it just perfectly. My senior year one, on the side it says dynamic, which was their theme. Now I can read it, but I can also not only can I read it because A, it's easy to read, and B, I've had this yearbook since X number of years, but it's also upside down. And I've seen, as an avid reader, I've seen plenty of ways that you put the title of something on the spine of a book. This is not one of them.
Hey man, it's an artistic statement.
It's what happens when you have high schoolers deal with the triple-digit price tag.
Not everything is art. Heather comes barging down my door.
Oh dear.
Anyway,
I'll read off a couple of yours, and I'll before we close out, and I'll read out some of mine.
Oh well, before we read some quotes, you want to hear the time where I was. I'm just gonna put it to you this way: they captured a faux political side of me in high school. Whereas, you know how like certain segments of the yearbook are dedicated to student opinions, student activities.
Yeah.
On 2 pages. And it's probably the most hysterical high school misrepresentation of the 2016 election I have ever heard. Mm-hmm. Or should I say, I've ever seen myself retelling. I didn't even know what I said, but to see it kind of embossed in in history is really kind of making me cringe. Let me see if I can find the page. Okay. So, mind you, this is the 2016 election, and this is when I think we were just strictly covering a sort of like a left-wing bias of like the whole Bernie versus Hillary kind of meme setup.
Right.
So, what do you think of the current presidential candidates from Sebastian Shug, graduation year 2016? I think Bernie Sanders has some good ideas, ... I just don't know if he's going to implement them properly. Mind you, this was me trying to sound intellectual, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't give a fuck about politics back then. But, they kind of just took me out of the classroom, and they were just like, "Hey, we want to know your opinion." And I had no idea they were going to ask me this. I cringe at my high school self, and ironically the time where I was probably the most confident in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I kind of had a slightly similar situation where they had a bunch of yearbook students just randomly walk into classrooms asking for like a handful of students, and they would ask them a question so they could get a quote, and then on top of that they would get a picture. So
yeah, that's what they would
because
do.
Because they were trying to find some fancy schmancy way of filling out so that it's not like as though all these pages, as I'm looking at this, it's not like as though all these pages were full of just candids of students.
Yeah. Well, they also wanted to, like, I feel, intentionally catch people in the moment. You know what I mean? Which was sort of like, it sort of lends to the whole like aestheticism of it, I guess.
So I was asked the question, and of course, as I look at this picture of myself, I'm realizing that as long as I'm in quarantine, my hair's going to look like this again. God, it's weird looking at myself in this picture. The question I was asked is, what is the best compliment you've ever received? To which my response was, this one girl always tells me I remind her of Michael Cera. Now, I respect Michael Cera. I respect Michael Cera. I think he's a talented actor, but... And, of course, as I'm looking on this page, I'm noticing that said girl is on the opposite page. So
Is that your whole response, though?
That was my whole response. Or at least that was the response that they had documented, yeah.
God.
And mind you, out of all my yearbooks, I think this was the one that clearly they did a fairly decent job on. So I can't fault them too much. There's stuff in here acknowledging what happened in the news, i.e. colored bacon.
What?
That the homeless man from Ohio with the golden voice and KFC's Double Down.
Shit was fucking crazy back in that. What was your graduation year? 2014?
Oh god, no. Mine was 2013.
Oh, 2013. Okay, yeah.
But mind you, this is only sophomore year. So we're talking
right.
A couple years prior. And I know there's at least one in here that was interesting where somebody referred to me. Somebody wrote, Michael Cera, you were so awkward plus adorable. And then they include a sentence about somebody that I think they thought I was going to date this person, and I didn't. And then they said, stay awesome, mi amigo. And then on top of that, you have the one lovely person who put, Dear Ryan, and then just wrote nothing but squiggles. So, and then they refer to themselves as Buddha cheese, whatever that could mean.
I'm sure it was funny back then.
I'm sure that was a kush that I wasn't aware of back in the day.
I'm seeing a lot of. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through my quotes now. I actually found my middle school yearbook too, which is even more of a cringe.
Yeah.
Of a cringe fest. There's a lot of phone numbers in here, and I'm tempted to call most of them.
Oh no, I'm tempted to do that with some of mine as well. Yeah.
I think like sort of the general consensus of what I'm seeing here, because there is a big stretch from 2012 memes to 2016 memes.
Oh my, that is a stretch.
But the general consensus in both the yearbooks seems to be about like my drawings, you know, a lot of people that I wouldn't even think I met. I think a lot of girls who liked me because I was tall, and that's really about it, which is the same vapidity I would have expected in high school anyway.
Yeah.
But
actually,
there's one quote that kind of sticks out here.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck at redacted, because the college name is here. Next year. It was awesome getting to know you and Eric. a good friend of mine. Keep your head high, pray your dick long, and remember, ... keep your pull-out game strong. Jesus. I don't even know the initials. I don't want to know. You know,
Well,
I really, you
well,
know,
here's something interesting that I'm finding
like
weird.
it's cringy to me that you know,
Mm-hmm.
not only who the person I was, which thank God I'm not that person anymore, but it's
Yeah.
more so of like, you know, I'm really like I'm given a spectacle on how people lived their lives back then. Like what the fuck went through people's minds when they wrote in my yearbook or your yearbook, you know? And this is it. This is most likely the last time I will ever see this person's name in my life, which is sad, but you know, check out this one. Hey, it's your black friend. JK, I'm mixed. Angry face. You probably won't remember how I look 50 years from now because I'm not in the yearbook. Haha, page 189, camera shy. Fuck the high school because like people who didn't take their pictures were on like a separate page.
Right.
Oh, hi to Sebastian's future kids. If you're reading this, I was your dad's favorite person ever. He loves me.
Well, I got a ton of those.
Jeez. I hate to break it to you. Hate to break it to you. Specific person who's listening who probably won't even remember what they wrote. You were all right.
But then there's this one that I guess in a weird way kind of sums up my graduation year.
Go ahead.
And I don't even remember. I hate to say it, but I don't remember the person who wrote this. I'm gonna have to look them up in the yearbook. This is perfect. Perfect source of information. But they put, "Hey there, stud Ryan. You is the coolest humanities homie ever. I hope your life is YOLO, swag peace." And then they wrote a peace sign. And then they wrote their signature, like, I'm freaking Social Security. And then they printed out their name, and then that was that. So it's the gems.
Oh,
The
no. Here's a gem. I'll show you a gem. And this is sort of on the same perspective that you were saying. It's like, you know, did these people want to do something over the summer? I'm going to preface this now. This is from an ex-girlfriend of mine.
Oh dear.
Who we actually are pretty good friends. But the thing is, it's like, I think because nothing really did happen, like it was easy to be friends. But she was like, "Hey Sebastian, I'm so glad I met you. You're such a great, sweet, intelligent guy, and I know you're going to be successful in the future. I love how you can keep a conversation. I hope we stay in touch after you leave. We should hang out during the summer, have fun in college." A lot of exclamation marks. "I wish you all the best. Have a great life. Heart." And then her name. Which, this is only going to make sense to the both of us when I say that she became quite a fan of our fraternity a few years later.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hard to even
and more
fathom,
more specifically, a specific upperclassman.
Oh no.
Oh no, indeed. Oh no, indeed. But you know what? I wish her the best as well, you know, as like a friend, because she's doing well. And honestly, a lot of these people in here, like, they're doing well. I would never in my right mind think to contact them because honestly, it's probably the self-deprecating side of me. What would I have to contribute to their lives as they're living them right now? They probably don't even remember me, right? So, you know, it's sort of like leaving them alone out of respect. Now, of course, there's the people that I do still see at, you know, university, or I saw, boo-hoo,
Yeah.
that retained the, you know, we went to middle school together, we went to high school together, we're going to college together now. And I have one of those people right here, one of my dear friends. His name's Eric. I've known him since first grade. And he wrote a long fucking block of text. But it's these types of messages that make me pretty sad. You know, it kind of harkens back to all the good memories. But when you're 5 shots in of Crown Royale the other night when we tried to record this for the first time, it does things. But anyway, you got any more zingers?
I think for now that's
about
just
it.
looking at the time. I think that's all I'm gonna read off for now.
I think on a happy note, we should leave it off on.
We're still kicking it. We're still gonna keep this show going, even with quarantine not letting up anytime soon, despite friends of ours saying August, which is total hogwash. Sebastian, where can the good people find you?
Oh God. Let's see. Well, where can't they find me? My ego knows no bounds. No, really.
Your yearbook. Pachoo.
God, look at all these quotes. See, people like me, Ryan. You know. Anyway, you can find me.
Yearbook doesn't mean you're in the yearbook.
No, I got a political page dedicated to me. You know, I don't really know about Bernie Sanders. I think he has some good ideas. Oh, that quote wasn't fucking dated.
I don't know.
Twice,
I mean,
twice.
It was relevant even up until April 8th of this year, the day Trump won re-election. So,
but anyway, the people could find me. Just sort of in general, feel free to type in Sebastian Shug on Google. No, I'm kidding. But you can do that in order to find my publishing platform, Sebastian Shug Publishing. You can also find me available on Instagram and Twitter under the handle Dr. Sebi. That's DRSEBBY for Instagram. And DR_, yeah, thanks, SEBBY for Twitter. There you can find my jokes and politically incorrect opinions abound, much like this show. Where can the good people find you as well? I need to stop. I
was pulling on my mustache because I was trying not to laugh so hard.
I've been going this whole episode, but anyway, sorry. Where can they find you?
Well, for all the good people out there listening, if you want to find me on Instagram, occasionally pondering absurdity and sharing the news, you can certainly find me on Instagram at Mancini Ryan. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, if you want to see me point out flaws in the California unemployment department,
get off your soapbox, Ryan.
There is a proper name for it that I will get right. But if you want to see me over there on Twitter, you can always find me at ManciniRA. All the details for our episode will come up after we wrap up. And yeah, it's been another humdinger of a week, and we'll see.
I stopped counting the days.
Maybe next week Trump will be telling us to, I don't know, eat each other. Who knows?
And with anyone with a brain or with any modicum of self-respect, we'll all be belly aching. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to Mars on Life. Please make sure that you find us over on social media at Mars on Life Show on both Twitter and on Instagram. And on top of that, you can find this show on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Our artwork is done by Zachary Erberich, and our intro music is Space Explorers by Kevin MacLeod. I've been Ryan Mancini. My co-host, as always, is Sebastian Shug. And just remember, if you keep on going, you'll make it to Mars.